All right, so this next project that we're doing is the alien landing environment. And if you go to that main page which says environment, this is what I already went over high with the other group. This is the main art style that we'll be working in. So it's flat art, cell shading kind of style in Photoshop with some line. And then we're also going to use SketchUp as a way to get some environment design understanding from a 3D reference. So this is me using SketchUp. Oops, I need to make that a little bit bigger here. Do you all still see this on Zoom, everybody? We could? Okay. So I do a demo with you all. This actually is the video of that demo where we go and we grab a pagoda and then we add atmospheric perspective using fog actually right in SketchUp. So there's a video demo of it. And the 3D warehouse, which is really cool, let me just jump into this real quick to show you kind of this whole process. I'm trying to make it bigger, but it's not, so maybe I'll just go right into YouTube. I'm not going to have the volume on, but basically we're looking for how to make something that has some hard surfaces. I take you through step by step how to use the 3D warehouse. You can see if you put in a search name like Pagoda, you get a lot of different tools. This is the 3D warehouse. SketchUp is a free tool. You can get it online, and when you download the images, they might have a lot of like photo imagery in it. This is me kind of working through a lot of different types of things. They even have cars, and then you can choose any kind of style that you'd like for the rendering right in SketchUp. So you can kind of get where you need to be quicker than if you had to draw it for yourself, for sure. But because we're working with that flat style, you might choose something that already has some line that is pretty similar to where we're trying to go. I also will show you how to use, here's the fog. You can see that I'm moving the camera around. This is the orbit tool that I'm using, which is pretty sweet. This is talking about how to download the image. It's exporting actually, but it's then bringing it into Photoshop. I'm bringing two files into Photoshop here and just showing a lot of different things in Photoshop for how to do it. Then you're going to do some sketching on it, on the file. So this is my spaceship right here, and then this is me showing it as like in a blast off. This is the Frank Lloyd Wright house that the spaceship is grabbing. So this is a spaceship that I kind of combined a lot of different elements, like a beer keg and other angled forms, and put them all together. And then in Photoshop, I'm drawing over it. So sometimes I don't like the lines that are coming out of SketchUp, and then I like it to be more within what I do in Photoshop. So you can see there's layers here, different layers for each of the assets, and then my line drawings up above it. And keep naming your layers like we learned in Illustrator to do the file naming convention, and the same thing applies for this. So that tutorial is available for you to access. Oops, I want to make it big. Can you all still see that? I still need to exit full screen. It's going to not be nice. Let's see. Let's see. Here we go. I really just, so are you able to see my screen still?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So there is a table of contents. If you go to YouTube, you'll be able to see those like little edges as it goes here. But if you're on the website here, these will take you directly into the set so that you can kind of follow along as you go. SketchUp Demo. After doing it, you're going to create a spaceship environment. There's lots of help that you can use. Here's some examples of working with pagodas. Now yours doesn't have to be a pagoda, it's just what we do for the demo. You can choose, like I was saying, the Taj Mahal, or Tristan had an idea of maybe doing something that was like the, what was that, Tristan, that you were thinking of?
There was 2 images that I was showing. One was of the Eiffel Tower, and the other one was of the Roman Colosseum.
Right, so all of those would be available in SketchUp. So you could go and search for them in the 3D warehouse. I mean, it's likely, I can't say for sure, but it's likely that someone has modeled them. They're modeled by different people, and you can access those. So that's pretty sweet. There's all kinds of tutorials. There's tutorials by me here of how to do more with environment painting. And these tools are the ones that you'll want to remember. So that's the SketchUp part. And that is a part of our process. You may find that you want to have that be before you do your thumbnails. So if you'd like to work within that realm, you would do the SketchUp part first. And because these are all individual reviews that we're doing, I'll work with you to make sure that you're running on the right method. So Tristan, you actually might want to use either your photos that you had or the SketchUp. So gathering benchmarks, this is what's due first. And the exercise is to find 3 professional benchmark examples for your project with illusion of space. So what's the difference between benchmarks and references? This is a guide for that. I like to use Pinterest. You may have, actually in this class I might not have talked about that yet, but basically I gather a lot of images for the character and the environment design stuff. People like to do it in Trello also. This is Chloe Stewart working with references though here. So references would be like photos that you're going to use. It's not the artwork. The artwork is something that you would choose that's a benchmark that you would choose to say to your client or to us in class, this is the art style that I'm going for. And that's why so actually in this class, we have some main benchmarks, which is this flat style art. These are the benchmarks I'm giving you for the project. You're going to find ones that are kind of this flat style. So it's nothing painterly. It's going to be flat style, line, shading. So your goal is to find 3 benchmarks. Here comes Hannah. It's going to find 3 benchmarks. And this is illusion of space. So let's take a look at, oops, that actually doesn't link. I have to fix that. Environment examples on Susan's Pinterest page. This is kind of more in line with the way that you might collect your benchmarks. Not all of these will be examples of environments for this particular benchmark kind of thing because it's cell shading. So you would need to think about how can you do cell shading, and I think a lot of these are probably not. Some of these are great environments for having a spaceship or turning that into a spaceship or something. So some of you all use, like I think I showed everybody how to use Photoshop to do the cutout filter. So you could run a cutout filter on something like this, cut this stuff out and make it into a spaceship. So there's a lot of references that you could pull to make sure that you can get some sort of spaceship. It doesn't have to come from your imagination. I like adding little elements like this to my work. This is flat style rendering, except for a few little gradients here, which we're not going to do. So you're going to be grabbing benchmarks like that. So if you want it like quirky, a little bit bent, kind of cartoony, that will help me to see, or maybe you're going to be more realistic. So I just kind of collect a lot of this kind of stuff, looking for benchmarks. You're only required to grab 3, but when you think about grabbing 3, it should be really within the realm of flat style art. So this one is from, oh, maybe it's not. I thought it was a particular cartoon, but it's not. So here's another flat style. This is really very interesting because of the dynamic kind of composition. So you have access to see that if you have a Pinterest account. This is a flat style piece that I did by just adding a little texture in it using Photoshop, but then I animated it in After Effects. But let's get back to here. So there's some professional examples. Also animation backgrounds. This link right here has animation backgrounds for a lot of different examples. Now these are textured, that particular one, but if we look at, I think Goofy is the right kind. Goofy is kind of textured, but it is cell shading with texture on it. So you can see this illusion of space happening. This kind of thing could be done in Photoshop, and then you just need to make sure that you have an alien spaceship, because there's requirements for this project. There's a multi-plane guide. We'll take a look at this more as we go along. This is the Wheels project, which is now called the Road Crew, and these are multi-plane. These are created actually with a lot of different software, but ultimately in Animate. This is an example of how I use my whole Pinterest page. I'm bringing everything into Photoshop, and I'm circling the things that I think are really the elements that I want to do. So you just need to communicate really what parts of these benchmarks you're trying to work within. I really love this kind of perky, swirly tree. It's something that we did incorporate into here. We just put tires on them. So tire trees is what we made them. The landscape for the Wheels project does have kind of this feel, but not like so rainbowy. Kind of like that kind of thing. So, and if you zoom out on it, you'll be able to see that. So you're going to hand them into the Google Drive. This is the, you can see my benchmarks are sitting there. You can do it this way as a JPEG, or maybe you make a folder with the 3 benchmarks, but you need to describe what is important with it. So that's why it's nice to probably put it into a Photoshop file, drag these images in, circle them, maybe even write a little bit about them or something. Okay? So that is due next class. Any questions about the benchmarks assignment?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to be involved in this specific assignment, but is there going to be a part where we need to lay out a sketch of what we want to do, or does that come later?
Oh yeah, that definitely comes at a certain point. So let me check on this. Okay, so that's a good question, and that after we do the benchmarks, which is the first part of the assignment, just kind of checking out, oh man, that's not the right way to do it. Okay, here. Okay, so environment, and then composition types and thumbnails. So we kind of move through all of these assignments. So composition types is the very next step. And I want you to look through this tool. Basically, these are the types of compositions and the space in compositions that you'll want to work through and know about. You're going to do this exercise, and this is the thing that will be due for you next class.
Oh, sorry.
What was that? Did you have a question?
Yeah, it's about the scheduling with spring break. That's next week, right?
Yeah, so let me just take us to the calendar. Spring break is next week. So let's see. Now I'm already in March. So today is the 28th. if you're a Monday group, you won't come in on the Wednesday group. They have an individual day. So then moving forward is spring break on the 7th and the 9th. So there is no class, no college. And then we return back on the 14th and the 16th. If you're on Monday, you'll come and do your composition types and your thumbnails and your benchmarks is what's going to be due. Wednesday, I still have to adjust this calendar, but for you all, this is what's going to be due, these 3 things, okay? And we also do data advising. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. And when you click into the calendar, you can see learn, create, submit. It's going to have all this information in there for image. So actually, I am asking for you to make a media recording of this project for the composition types. And so there's going to be a different rules for submitting all of this stuff. Everything will have its own rules based on what you see in the calendar, okay? So back over to here, make these 3 compositional studies in 1920 by 1080, and I am recommending for you to do the implied circle, leading the eye, rule of thirds, and Fibonacci sequence. These should be just quick 15-minute projects using the selections and fills in Photoshop. There's Photoshop shortcuts that I want you to learn. The lasso tool is L, the command or control T is transform, that's huge, the gradient tool. All of these I want you to kind of have at your ready. I want you to know how to use them with your keyboard. And then you're going to watch this tutorial. Oh, there's my image from when I liquefied myself. This tutorial is going to kind of go through how to do the cutout, not cutout, but selecting and then filling. So, and how to use the template that I've given you. And it's kind of lagging right now, but this will go through the entire process. And it will end up looking a little bit like this. So this is the Fibonacci sequence, the floating city. Here's the Fibonacci sequence, a dark cave framing the edges. This is the rule of thirds. And when you look at that tutorial thing up here, they will go through all of these parts, okay? So that's why you're going to watch that part. It's a ramp up to the house, so you can see that this is similar to what I was looking at with my benchmarks. Leading the eye. So this video is a help working with a student. So if you're looking for just a little bit of extra help, this isn't one of the things that's required, but this is me talking to a student about how to manipulate the values of the environment. I see there's some things in chat. Let me grab that. Okay, I think Kaya's actually already took off anyways. And then there's some more advanced selection methods, also an optional assignment. It's not really an assignment, it's just if you really want to get into Photoshop and understanding how the selection tool works for doing very quick sketching, it's a really, really good method. It's so quick, it's so much faster than doing the painting. And so one of the things that I want you guys to all be good at is being fast, because time is money, right? And we want you to make sure that you can actually get money for what you do. So that's why it's pretty important. So that page is composition types. And then there's thumbnails. Create 9 grayscale thumbnails for your project. Here's the technique. Using grayscale only. So this is really using that technique that you did for just the idea, like the composition sketches. Those are sort of, those ones do not have to be alien landscapes. They might be, but that's just a way for you all to get used to working with Photoshop and grayscale. And then this is very quick sketches. Sometimes students don't do them so quickly, like Joe Mead spent a lot of time on it. Some students, they're working with characters in the environment. So there's a lot of different types of examples here of different ways to do the work. And there's a quick tutorial on a perspective grid in Photoshop. It's actually a brush in Photoshop that you can download. And then this is the Photoshop file with adjustable perspective lines. So you can download those if you would like to have access to that content. See how these are in a template? So I've set up a file for you where there's an HD environment thumbnail. And you would just go and get this and download it. And the black is all above the gray so that you can then paint underneath it. And that way you know what's HD. So just looking for 9 of these. And this should be the alien landscape. So if you weren't here in the beginning, you want to make sure that you understand that there are some specific rules. So visual requirements. At least one spaceship, a real place, not abstract, some action, so things like explosion you could have, or you could have smoke, or a hole in the sky, or something like that. Strong side lighting, multiple planes on hard surfaces, linear perspective, accessible flat color, texturing, and atmosphere perspectives. So that's what's required in the project. So keep that in mind as you're doing your sketching. And we're going through 1 through 3 first. Okay? So with that being said, any questions from you all?
I have personal other assignment questions, but other than that, I'm good.
Okay, on the environment, you're good to
Yeah,
go?
this is
Okay.
good.
Yeah, good, Hannah. What about you, Istria? Do you have any questions about the project?
No, I understand.
Okay. Victoria?
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty good.
Okay. And Tristan? We kind of talked about your ideas. Yeah, so aliens, the truth is out there. About a year ago, there was a press release that came out that showed that that Navy airplane flyers, what are they called? Pilots. We're actually seeing elements that were unidentifiable, and they really. So, do you guys remember that press release that came out? So
yeah, and there was a lot of them too from over the years. And it wasn't one event; it was just like lots of different incidences that
yeah.
2017, I think they also released a lot of that.
Right. So we're gonna you can play up on that. Remember that this is intended to be an illustration that would be an intro sequence for a documentary video for the Science or History channel. So we're also going to eventually include layout. So let me take us to here. This is Bill Fisher's final piece. Cover-up, conspiracy. We will eventually include text, okay? Because it's intended for television. So you're going to have that layout. You're going to have like an alien spaceship. You can see that there's a person here with some three-dimensionality to it. And so there's font. We'll take you through all of that kind of stuff, but remembering that there's this kind of art style. And if you want to see how the stuff turned out from previous semesters, this is a really good way to look at that. So this is Tyler Elias's and the reviews. Kaylee Gonzalez. These students have now gone on to graduate, so this one's getting some gas to go. Gas prices are high right now, though. sighting from the sea. So things that closer to us will be darker, and then moving back in space, as Genelomans. UFO sighting, making it look like it's a Post-it note. It's coming from Drew. Case number 00152, alien spaceship found crashed in urban. I repeat, there is an alien spaceship that has been found coming to a channel near you. That's Emma Salas. This one is kind of a little bit more hit, man. It came stoned from space. By Jesse Murray. Horrors from space. So this is a good example of the SketchUp elements. Not all of those other pieces were using SketchUp, but Adrian Wheeler did a really fantastic job. So is the spaceship like walking? Is it almost alien-like? Can the spaceship turn into that? Sure, Adrian really rocked that. Circular form composition, so that you can see the circular form when you do your compositional studies was brought into what Adrian Wheeler, strange landing in the desert. So this compositional type is framing the edges. That's one of the compositional types that you'll study and learn about. Friend or fungi. So this is like a fungus spaceship. And the aliens in the shadows. The beyond calls. So there's a lot of opportunity using texture on the flats as well. So, yeah, hopefully you'll be able to have fun with it, and just remember that's the benchmarks that I'm giving you for the assignment. So, there will be tutorials all along the process, so we're going to continue to do the flipped delivery.